The COVID pandemic comes to an abrupt halt here in Minneapolis as the police state spins out of control. The governor of South Dakota bucked Big Brother on COVID lockdown, but what's the real reason the media hate her? And finally, he's back. Dr. Fauci tells us that in order to slow the spread, we need to stop receiving Holy Communion. All that and more tonight from the editor's desk. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Matt coming to you once again from the offices of the Remnant newspaper. Here in Minneapolis, the pandemic is over, at least for the time being. The murder of George Floyd could go down as the Fort Sumter of our civil war here in America. And that's exactly what this is, of course. This national lockdown is a political civil war and has been for a long time, been building for a long time. First off, let me set a little context. I know there's always two sides to these things. When I was a young man, I used to work in law enforcement here in Minneapolis, in fact. I've arrested plenty of people, and I remember what adrenaline and fear can do in the heat of the moment in the course of an arrest. Nevertheless, what happened here in Minneapolis the other night when a white cop crushed the life out of a black man in broad daylight while his partners looked on and really guarded what he was doing. This has to be one of the sickest things that's ever happened. Certainly one of the sickest things I've seen in the course of law enforcement ever in my life. You know, and we've been saying this down here for so long. What this is, again, Christ or chaos. And here in Minneapolis, Christ was driven out of town years ago. Remember how they did that? Banning prayer. There is no moral law. You can't police people who have no idea how to police themselves, and the police themselves then become amoral and immoral in a situation like ours, because there is no moral code, there is no moral law, and that's what we're seeing here. And of course, there's more to this story. George Floyd is yet another casualty of this out-of-control national lockdown. We've been calling for the end of this. People all across the country have been calling for an end to this. How long is it going to go on? And this is just the latest, and maybe the worst result or consequence of this insanity, this Orwellian insanity, which is politically motivated. Now, I'm not saying, I don't know this guy. I'm not saying he was a saint, but he was gainfully employed just 2 months ago. And here's where the lockdown then ended for this poor man. I'm sorry, but this is, again, what's happening right now in our city is a consequence of this insane, draconian, globalist lockdown. And it's not just Minneapolis. This is going to spread all across the country as it already is. Months of unemployment now in the streets of our cities. Kids out of school. They took the basketball nets, for heaven's sakes, off these guys' basketball hoops. So they can't even go out and get some exercise. They're out of school. They don't have sports. They're turning to drugs, alcohol. We've been detailing this every week down here. And this coupled with the social moral chaos that's been building for years in the streets of America is a deadly concoction. It's a perfect storm. And now, of course, the National Guard has been called up into Minnesota. And you know what? I'm glad they are, because at this point, our political leadership, because they will not rely on a moral code, because they will not allow anyone to consult the law of God, that's all they can do at this point. Call up the Guard. Because if God's law doesn't matter, and the Constitution is just a piece of paper, why should anyone follow any rules at all? And we're seeing this play out in our city right now, 20 miles down the road from where I'm sitting right now, spreading all over the place. And of course, the national protesters coming to burn our city and trample on the Constitution in their own way. They're coming in by the plane load now, of course, because that's the way these things work now. They are just as lawless as the power-drunk politicians who've been terrorizing all of us, terrorizing citizens at a much higher level over the past few months. Every night, every day, press conferences called to scare the hell out of people in this country. And with the mayor of Minneapolis, by the way, who's a radical leftist, his name is Jacob Frey, if he has his way, guess what? Those same cops will be pounding on the doors of Minneapolis churches here this coming Sunday. We're going back to Mass in St. Paul. In Minneapolis, this guy, because he doesn't like the fact that the governor of Minnesota backed down to our Catholic bishops here in defiance of the lockdown law. He doesn't like that fact. So what's he doing, Governor Frey? At least he was doing this until his city blew up. He's considering his own executive order to lock down religious services here in Minneapolis. And you might remember this guy.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey has proclaimed March 10th as Abortion Provider Appreciation Day.
This is just back in March. You see, these guys, they care so much about human life that they simply must. They have to shut down churches and religious services. Well, of course, leaving abortion clinics open. That's how much they care about life. It's no wonder our city is burning, friends. When you have no respect for human life, where are the young folks right now burning the city? Where are they supposed to learn about respect for human life? Where's that going to come from? Anyone think that maybe, just maybe, it's time to bring God back into this? Is that a possibility, that maybe that's what's going wrong in this country? I guess not. And this godless madness is the national problem at this point. And they're not giving up. They're not giving up. This character, this mayor of Minneapolis, well, he can't keep people from burning down his own town because of the liberal policies that have torn our cities apart all across this country. He's out there handing out masks because they're so disappointed that this thing has thrown the COVID pandemic nonsense off the front pages. Nobody cares now. The cities are burning down. And just this week, their actual commander-in-chief, these Democrat nutballs, Tony Fauci, he tells America magazine, the great Jesuit magazine, that he thinks receiving Holy Communion should be abandoned until further notice in this country. It's just too risky, according to Tony. Is anyone still buying this? Is anyone taking these people seriously anymore? Just look at the facts. Just look at the data. And you got other places that are doing just fine. We're supposed to pretend like we don't see what's happening right out to our west, the neighboring state of South Dakota, which has a whopping 50 COVID deaths. Let me say it again, 50 deaths. Despite the fact there was no lockdown, there was no economic shutdown, their churches weren't closed, no unconstitutional quarantine of the healthy, right? But we're not supposed to talk about that. And the media have been crucifying South Dakota's Governor Kristi Noem for treating the people like what? Like adults, for refusing to treat her whole state like a kindergarten in the face of a big, serious, bad flu. That's what they hate her for. Well, not only that, they also hate her, of course, because of this.
Any bill that we could pass that would protect a life is incredibly important. So many times women are feeling pressured to have an abortion. And so we wanted to make sure that coercion couldn't be utilized to end a baby's life. Well, you know, I've committed to being the most pro-life governor in the nation. I think someone needs to lead by example. I'm actually the first governor that would put an unborn person advocate on my staff that actively looks every day for ways to protect life. And so we often talk about ending abortion. And actually, in the last decade, we've seen our abortions cut in half in South Dakota, go down over 55%. Last year, we had the biggest decrease ever in the last decade as well.
I mean, how about Governor Noem for America's first woman president in 2024? I'm all for that. She's the New World Order's wake-up screaming nightmare. And it could happen because the folks in South Dakota, they love this woman. Here she is fighting back tears as the first responders, the frontline heroes, surprised the governor with a parade of appreciation for her leadership during this pandemic. Check it out.
Okay, let's...
I don't know about you, that kind of brings a tear to my eye, though. That's really beautiful, you know? And again, the most pro-life governor in the country. It's just, it's beautiful, and it should give us all reason to stay hopeful, prayerful, and confident in this time. This is not going the way the globalists and the Democrats expected it to go. And conversely, as opposed to what's happening in South Dakota, people in Wisconsin are trying to run their governor. They're not giving him a parade. They're trying to run him out of town because he's crazy, because he's insane, right? The Supreme Court of Wisconsin legalized statewide defiance of the governor's lockdown a month ago. Did you hear about that? I didn't think so. Just doesn't seem to be interesting at all to Anderson Cooper and the kids, does it? Because Wisconsin puts a lie to what's happening in New York and Michigan and New Jersey. Because in Wisconsin, the bars and the restaurants are all wide open, no social distancing. And guess what? Millions of people are not dying in Wisconsin. In fact, they have 507 deaths in Wisconsin. That's about half the number of deaths here in lockdown Minnesota. Because, we're also running our COVID, recovery patients through nursing homes. So they're padding our numbers here. Can you imagine being such a moron that you look at Andy Cuomo and you go, I'm going to pattern my COVID policy after that, It's just insane. And of course, the Wisconsin situation has got the mental midgets in the media positively freaking out. Check this guy out, just trying so hard to shame everybody in that state for not wearing their little mask. Check it out.
So the people there are just not worried about it, Cal? Are they not worried about their own personal safety?
I haven't met anybody who is, but you can see here, just around. Nobody's wearing them. Nobody's. The cameraman. There you go, including the cameraman. Yeah, Katie.
That guy at the end there, he's obviously not obeying his TV set, is he? I love that. Just nail these guys and their sanctimonious, fraudulent behavior, because it's all theater. And we know it now, media people. We're on to you. We know it's fraud. It's nonsense. Or maybe the guy in the video at the end who busts the cameraman there, maybe he's been obeying his TV, but it was the stuff he was seeing on TV a month ago.
When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. And often there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
And can you get some schmutz sort of staying inside there?
Of course. But when you think masks, you should think of healthcare providers needing them and people who are ill.
Wear your mask. Don't wear your mask. Do your mask. Wear your mask when I say it's okay. I'm Tony Fauci. I'll tell you what to do always.
This is insanity, friends. And you know what? Now Fauci is saying wear the mask more or less as a symbol.
I mean, I do it when I'm in the public for the reasons that, A, I want to protect myself and protect others, and also because I want to make it be a symbol for people to see that that's the kind of thing you should be doing.
Okay, Tony. And you know what, Tony? When I grow up, I want to be just like you. Oh my gosh. These are the experts of the New World Order. It's incredible. Here's what I think. You know what I think? I think Fauci, he's a smart guy. I never said he wasn't. You got to be smart to be lying to yourself like he's doing all the time. But I think really at the end of the day, Fauci knows very well that trying to stop COVID with a face mask is like trying to keep mosquitoes out of your backyard with a chain link fence. I'm not a science guy, but it was broken down to me the other night by a guy who is. He said, if you want to know the size of this thing, of this virus, first of all, take a grain of salt and divide it 100 times. And there you've got a skin cell. Now take one of those particles and divide that 1,000 times, and you've got the coronavirus. It's pretty tiny. And these poor people, these poor masked lemmings, they're out there thinking they're going to stop the virus with the coffee filter or with the sock. I saw a guy the other day with a running shoe taped to his head. There was a lady wearing the bra a little too high over the face and nose. I mean, this is just sad what they're doing. They're humiliating these people now and calling it science. But really, at the end of the day, when you consider what they're trying to do here, Fauci's quite right. The mask is a symbol. It's a symbol of party loyalty, so you better wear it. Here in Minnesota, you know what? We can go out to eat again. We can go to restaurants. The governor instructed us that, this is how they actually had a press conference in which the governor instructed us how to lower the mask in order to eat a little bite of food or take a sip of your beer and then put it right back up again. And careful not to touch your face because, that's where the virus lives, all over your hands. Just shut the damn restaurants down. Because who wants to go out to eat knowing that you're just one little sneeze away from killing your waitress? You see, this is nonsense, friends. They're not lifting the lockdown by some of these things. They're passively, aggressively doubling down on it. You will wear the mask because we want you to. And papers, please. We're doing it all over again. Don't you see? Okay, you didn't live through the Soviet Union. You didn't live through the Nazi occupation of Europe. But you saw the movies, right? Don't you think it's kind of familiar? They want us to carry papers. They want us to wear special things to show party loyalty, right? They want to trace us and track us. And you know what's going to happen? They're going to have people, if this doesn't end, they're going to have people so terrified, so frightened, that we'll be lining up to have the little chip put under our skin so that we can be safe. That's what they're trying to do, drive us crazy, terrorize us until we will do anything, vaccinate us, do whatever it takes, but let me live again. And again, the facts don't matter because the people on TV have been indoctrinating you, and it takes a long time to get over that. People aren't even paying attention to the fact that the CDC, just a couple of days ago, lowered the death rate percentage again. Now we're down to 0.26. You have a much better chance, friends, of dying in a car accident. That doesn't matter. Hospitalizations, confirmed cases of COVID, the deaths are down all across the country. So why are the terror tactics continuing? You think it has absolutely nothing to do with the upcoming presidential election? It has everything to do with that. They're not trying to fix the virus to cure it. And we said this down here months ago, remember? Well, you see, they don't want to beat the virus. That's the point. They're using this thing, and they're using people who are suffering from this thing, and using people who are dying from this thing to push their agenda. Only now the remnant's not alone. Lots of people are saying this. They're so exposed.
Given that we now know that the virus is a lot less deadly than originally thought, and that it's most dangerous to the confined elderly, there's no good reason to keep any part of the country completely closed. Unless, that is, you don't want America to recover, at least while Trump is president.
Friends, maybe you think this is real. I get it. It's a powerful propaganda machine that you're up against, that we're all up against. But just for a second, think about it. If you don't want to get this, you want to wear the mask, I have no problem with that. You think that's going to save your life, protect you, you're afraid, you're in a high risk. We've said this from the beginning. That's fine. But do you really want the government overreach in your life to this extent? Where do you think this is going to end? And what about the fact that people who are at the epicenter of all this are begging us to open our eyes before it's too late?
So if you would just summarize for us why you wrote this piece and why you think these lockdowns, which we've been told day after day are so important, should end.
I wrote this piece this weekend when I saw images of New Yorkers at about 4:30 in the morning, hours before this Catholic church opened, that was offering food because they were hungry and they needed food. And when I saw those images is really when I went from being frustrated with Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio to being furious because people are going hungry, small businesses are being destroyed, jobs are evaporating, our kids aren't being educated, people can't get cancer screenings. And the governor sits there on his TV show every day and acts as if what we're complaining about is that there's nothing to watch on Netflix. It's bizarre and it's infuriating.
500 doctors wrote a letter to President Trump, something else I'm sure you didn't see, especially if you're watching CNN. 500 doctors last week asking the president to end the coronavirus lockdown, saying that it is a mass casualty incident. Suicide hotline now, that the phone calls are up 600% according to the professionals. Alcohol, drug abuse everywhere, spousal abuse everywhere, people unemployed, cities literally burning to the ground. When's this going to stop? When is this going to stop? Because the virus isn't that bad compared to what they're doing to us right now, friends. And anyone who's thinking, anyone who's reasonable knows this. The president himself came out. National TV, strike that, international TV, because the whole world saw the leader of the strongest, most powerful country in the world tell everybody, it's time to go back to church. It's time to pray.
The governors need to do the right thing and allow these very important, essential places of faith to open right now for this weekend. If they don't do it, I will override the governors. In America, we need more prayer, not less. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, you never Trumpers out there, but this guy's more Catholic than the Pope. Imagine for just one little second that Donald Trump is not in the White House right now. I know he's got his problems, but just for a second, think about that. What does that feel like when these guys have nobody tapping the brakes? Nobody. What is that like? And while the Pope is over there doing a disappearing act. Speaking of His Holiness, where has Francis been? I mean, he had a lot of big plans before all this hit, remember? His new economy, the economy Francesco. Remember we covered that? He's going to give the whole world a new economy. His cool little global education pact. That was fun. You know, he was going to save the world with Bono. Do you remember all that? Well, that's all gone kind of belly up too, hasn't it? It's all canceled. And Francis, let's face it, isn't getting any younger. Maybe we're beginning to see God intervene. Maybe God himself is getting tired of this papal windbag, because it seems like it. And here's the thing. Again, if Trump wins in November, it could be curtains for the whole 2030 agenda, sustainable development, the green goals, all of this stuff, which I'm sorry to say, friends, but Francis has been all for. He's been promoting it with the full weight of his office for months, years. I've been reporting on it down here for a couple of years. It's not a conspiracy theory. He's right in bed with the globalists, the United Nations, and he's bringing them right into his house, into the Vatican, right, to promote this stuff. Well, this isn't kind of working for them, is it, right now? I know things are bad, but I'm not so sure. Are we being shut down, or are they? Because they seem pretty desperate. And the country is going to open up, whether Bill Gates, Tony Fauci, or Pope Francis like it or not, friends. Have you noticed this? It's opening. No vaccine. That's not going to happen. No 18 months. Remember that? You can't do anything for 18 months, right? Well, I'm going to Mass this Sunday, Bill. Thanks very much. And the president, oh my gosh, the president, just to make a point, he's popping the hydroxychloroquine like it's popcorn lately. Have you noticed this? You know what he's doing? I made a point about this once before, I know a couple shows ago, that he is a statesman in the sense that he does care about the people of his state. He cares about his state more than just his political agenda. He's an older guy, too. Politics isn't his thing. He wants to make his country great again, right? That's his big crime. Well, now what he's doing when he's taking this drug, this dangerous, lethal, deadly drug that's going to cause everybody to fall over dead from cardiac arrest, according to CNN, right? He's taking these pills in order to do what? In order to show you, friends, that it works. And why is he doing that? Because if it does work, just how necessary is that little old vaccine, Mr. Gates? You see what he's doing? You get it? That's why he's taking hydroxy. He's trying to show us there's another way here. This guy's on our side, friends. He reminds me, in fact, this has been made by others, and I agree with them. This point's been made by other people. He reminds me of Cyrus the Great, you know, the liberator who let the Jews return home to Jerusalem from their exile in Babylon. Remember your history? Now, he wasn't one of them. He wasn't a Jew, but he was hailed by Jews as the anointed of the Lord because God had used this guy to deliver his people. Could it be that God is using this man, Trump, this unlikely character, to deliver his people? I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying it could be. Because right now, what's Trump doing? He's out there blasting the globalists. He's trashing the World Health Organization. That's Bill Gates. Defunding it, pulling out of it. You understand how offensive that is? So when we say maybe this lockdown has something to do with defeating Donald Trump, that's not a stretch. He's trashing their entire agenda. The other day he went on TV, and what do you suppose he did? He trashed the World Trade Organization now. These are the sacred cows of the United Nations, the one world, the globalists, right? And here at home, defunding Planned Parenthood, taking on the social media giants, the Christophobic social media giants like Twitter and Facebook. And he's pulling us out of the Paris Climate Change Treaty, friends. You want to know why they really hate Donald Trump? Here's a clip that'll show you.
I announced the withdrawal of the United States from the horrible, costly, one-sided Paris Climate Accord. Ask them how they're doing in Paris with it. Not too good.
Acuerdo de París del 12 de diciembre de 2015, la comunidad internacional tomó conciencia de la urgencia y necesidad de dar una respuesta colectiva para colaborar en la construcción de nuestra casa común.
He's been on their side every step of the way, friends. The church has been infiltrated. God will save his church. But we don't have to pretend like this hasn't happened. I'm not saying it's the end of the church, but the human element of the church has been totally infiltrated, and it happened a long time ago. And Francis now is one of them. So when we were fighting in defense of traditional marriage, who staged a high-profile meeting with a married gay couple in front of the cameras of the world? When the United Nations launched their population-controlling sustainable development goals, who met with the actual authors of the Sustainable Development Goals? Right there in the heart of Christianity. You see, what's happening here, friends? What's happening? We've known what's happening here for a long time. What's happening here is why the traditional Catholic movement got started in the first place. Because, you see, this is just the next stage in the modernist revolution that tore the church apart. Please don't fill the comm boxes with things saying that before Vatican II things weren't good, because before Vatican II things were bad. Pope Pius X himself was waging war against these modernists 130 years ago. So we're not simplistic little trads saying it all started at Vatican. That's not the point. Vatican II was the coming out party, as I've said so many times. The modernist coming out party. The great saints such as Pius X, he tried to crush it. They got past him, and then Vatican II happened, and they came out, and they destroyed your Mass, and they destroyed your catechism, and they destroyed your idea of family, orthodoxy. They wrecked it all with the big message that we're the nice and friendly Catholic Church. We don't think that we're better than any other religion. We're all the same on the journey to the happy place. That's, in a nutshell, that's what it was all about. Knocking the church. First they took out Christ the King. Then they took out the Catholic monarchy. And then they came out after the very idea that the Catholic Church is the one true church founded by Jesus Christ, outside of which there is no salvation. You want to know why my cities are burning right now? It's because of that, because they were successful in that. The pioneer traditional Catholics were not just some snobby liturgists who preferred Latin. These men were men of insight. They understood. They had read what was coming for 100 years. They knew what they were talking about. They defended the old Latin Mass because they knew that Mass and the theology that it represents, the theology that it defends, the doctrine that it defends, that Mass stood squarely in the way of an international agenda. Yes, a political agenda to go ahead and stop and declare war on the social kingship of Jesus Christ, to declare war on his church. It's time to face the truth of this, friends. Our cities are burning, and we need to understand why this is happening. It's because the church is gone. It's because they knocked it out. It's because they knocked and declared war on the kingship of Christ. We've got to have these conversations. Time's running out, friends. It really is. This is a golden opportunity for a counter-revolution. But like an alcoholic who denies that he has a problem, until we admit that we have a problem in the church, a serious, fundamental problem in the church, we're not going to fix it. And I know a lot of you out there are unsure of what traditional Catholic really even means. A month ago, we shot an Editor's Desk program right down here, which reached over 1 million people. Okay, now I know many of you people, you who watch this, you don't have access to the Latin Mass, you don't even understand the arguments necessarily yet. But see, that's just the point. This doesn't mean that we're not in the same foxhole together right now, because we are. What's going on right now is a global takedown of Christianity. You know it. I know it. And thank God, guys like Donald Trump are even figuring it out. That's what this is. And we need to stand together against it. You need to stop fighting. The circular firing squad's got to go away now. And we need to stand together. This is war. I'm a Catholic, and this is the largest and most organized Christian church in the world, right? By numbers, numerically, 2 billion members worldwide. A central chain of command, hospital systems all over the world, orphanages all over the world, schools, universities all over the world. So it's easy to see why the Catholic Church had to go first, but Christianity itself is the target now. Christians are being persecuted all over the world, and we need to stand together now. Imagine if every bishop in this country were to do what our bishops in Minnesota just did last week, defy the secular authority, open their church and say, you know what, we're doing this with or without your permission. Imagine if that happened across the country, across the world. The secular authority here in Minnesota backed down overnight because there was a flicker of the great Catholic Church, the authority of the church. Don't you cross that line. Happened right here in Minnesota. We couldn't believe it because these bishops are not traditionalists, right? But they're beginning to see what's happening here. And we need to see what's going on too. And Trump stood with those bishops because he understands that if the Catholic Church wakes up, everything changes. And guess what? By the way, America truly will become great again, because the moral authority of America has always been the Catholic Church. Just look around. I know you like to bash the Catholics, but look at every major city. There's a cathedral, there's a church. Most of them were founded by Catholic missionaries. The moral authority of the Catholic Church has made America great in the past. And so the fight now for the traditional, everybody, whether you're Protestant or whatever you are, the restoration of the Catholic Church is essential. And we saw this again in Minnesota this past week, where they stood up, the bishops stood up, and then some Lutherans came along as well. And they told the governor right where he can step off, and he did. So the fight for traditional Catholic restoration is the fight, friends, for the survival of our entire country, of our world. And I know we've got a lot of Protestant friends that are out there, and they agree with this. They don't agree with us on theology. But the Catholic lighthouse on the hill, when that goes dark, look out, everyone. Because it is the largest, most organized Christian church in the world, and I happen to believe it's the only true church. But we can have that debate, theological debate, over a snifter and a cigar someday. The reality is we all need to stand against Christophobes right now. And we can't give up hope, friends. This is an important moment, the most important perhaps in our lives. Yes, unite the clans. In the end, my Immaculate Heart will triumph, says Our Lady of Fatima, right? We're not giving up. We cannot give up. The church always rises when everyone counts her out, all through history. And the church will rise again now. Now is the time for the Catholic Church to throw off the shackles of the spirit of that cursed Second Vatican Council and make the church Catholic again. The people who are destroying our world, closing our churches, what they needed in order to get there was for the Catholic voice to be silenced. Your Excellencies, Your Eminences, you must understand this by now. For the sake of the world, the Catholic Church has got to go back to being Catholic. The city that I grew up in right now is in flames, friends. And it's a little scary. They're burning it down. Both of them, St. Paul and Minneapolis, right now. Chaos reigns here in a place where Christ used to rule. And I mean that. Christ ruled here. Priests such as Father Gaultier and Father Bergold and Catholic bishops such as Baraga literally carved my state out of the wilderness. They built the hospital systems in Minnesota. They built the school systems. They built the orphanages and the soup kitchens. Minneapolis, Hennepin County, is on fire right now. Hennepin County, named after Father Louis Hennepin, the missionary priest who paddled up the Mississippi and literally put Minnesota on the map. You see what I'm saying? See what I'm getting at? You see what's happened? The Catholic Church, friends, has been infiltrated, has been kicked out of the way. And now she's been, by her own policy, after the Second Vatican Council especially, she's been in full retreat for decades, and it has to end. This debate over traditional Catholicism, neo-Catholicism, come on. They're burning our cities down. They're locking us in our homes. They've closed our churches. They're telling us we can't receive communion for months on end. Don't you think it's time to look at what the pioneer traditional Catholics were saying a long time ago and warning against? Because they were warning against this. They were warning against this. What's happening to us right now. And I would make an appeal to the bishops of America, and I know not all of you are Blaze Supich. There are many good bishops in America who are waking up right now, and I would appeal to them. If you have kept the faith at all, Your Excellencies, please lead us. Lead us out of this. Speak out in our name, in the name of Christ. I mean, you're disappearing anyway as things are going right now. They don't care what you say anymore. They don't care about your dialogue and your interfaith meetings and your ecumenism. They don't care. That was a ruse to shut you up. You're disappearing from our cities. Here in Minneapolis, just a few weeks ago, this was the scene.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu
And I don't blame them, friends. They're just doing what we allowed them to do. They're filling the vacuum where the Catholic Church used to be. And finally, my friends, to our brother faithful Catholics, the clans, if you will, let's get together on this. We must not close our eyes until the leadership of the Catholic Church wakes up, and the leadership of the Catholic Church surely will wake up. And that's what Unite the Clans is all about. We need to maintain the covenant with God, with our church, even if and when our shepherds and priests do not. You see, Unite the Clans is uniting us, brothers, families, lay people all across the world. And if we have priests who are with us, God bless them. But we need to unite now. Doesn't matter which chapel or which fraternity or which society. We need to unite together and make sure we get through this. We need to unite together to start an army, to stand and resist. We need to stay in the church. We need to defend the bride of Christ at this moment. We don't get to go away. We don't get to walk away. This is our church. This is our castle. They're burning it to the ground. We can't leave it. We can't leave her. And we need to beg our bishops, beg our priests every day to return to tradition, to restore the Mass, liturgical sanity, to become, in a word, Catholic again. If you really want to open the country, as I do, friends, let's open the church. Let's raise our voices in proclamation of the kingship of Christ, the one thing the New World Order cannot stand, the thing they spent 500 years trying to destroy, the kingship of Christ. Every time we proclaim him king, even if it's just in our own home, it's in our own lives, they're terrified by that because they're demons. We need to show fealty to Christ the King. Do that, and he will do the rest. Because that means we're going to keep the faith, and that's all that matters. Swear allegiance to him so that we will keep the faith no matter what comes, no matter what they try to do to us. Let's do this. Let's unite the clans and do this now before it's too late. May God help us all, as Catholics, as brothers. May he help us all to see what must be done and to have the courage to go out and do it. I'm Michael Matt for Remnant TV. Keep the faith, and we'll see you next time.